All right, the question was, why did the War Crimes Commission drop the ball on this, and why were the sentences for the war criminals reduced?
I could answer that, sir. I obtained a copy of that war crime report, and the last paragraph reads, this isn't verbatim, but what Colonel Ellis said was, due to the fact that the war has ended and the German army has been discharged, the likelihood of finding the perpetrators who committed this crime would be very unlikely. This case is hereby closed. Your second question? I'm sorry.
It was
the sentence. Okay.
The sentences.
Some of you may remember Senator McCarthy. Okay. McCarthy was very, very outspoken during these war trials. Word got out that many of the Germans were tortured and had mock trials, mock executions, crushed testicles, and what he tried to say was that it was a farce. Here we are trying to demand justice and being, in a system of justice, and we did some terrible things too. And then the Cold War started, and I think that's part of the reason also. I think at the time, politicians, the military thought that it wasn't highly unlikely that we might need the help of the German army to turn and fight against the Russians. That's what I found. What I tried to do and what I tried to be so careful with and what I tried to emphasize with everybody was, we're going by facts. We're not speculating, okay? I don't know who killed those 11 men. I have an idea, but until I know for certain. And one of my goals to come from this film is for perhaps somebody in Germany, maybe somebody that's going to meet their maker soon, might want to speak up and say what happened that day. Because I've heard 4 or 5 different stories. So there's still a lot of mystery there, but we just tried to base it on it. But that's what the report said, sir. And I'm sure everybody has their own opinions. I know I have mine.
Yes, another question. This is the sister of George, and she wanted to know, why did it take so long for the 333rd to be recognized?
That's a great question, and it really comes to the whole issue of black participation in World War II. Long before I found that there was a book by the same name, I referred to the black soldiers of World War II as the invisible soldiers. Most people have heard of the Tuskegee Airmen, but to the other 250,000 black troops who served in Europe and the Pacific, no one has really ever heard of them. They got a little bit of press during the war, but because of the segregation of the time and the prejudice, they simply did not get the same type of attention. There were 9 black artillery battalions like the 333rd. The vast majority of black troops were in a service role because the official Army policy is that they felt that was really all that the black troops were, quote, good for. And the combat troops, such as the 333rd and the others, were really special units. There was almost an experiment. And the important part of their service is, because of the performance of units like the 333rd and the 969, is partly what convinced President Truman to desegregate the armed forces, because it laid to rest years and years long thoughts that black males weren't smart enough to handle artillery, even though there were black artillery units in the Civil War, that they could only do sort of stevedore type work. So the unit was very important, but there has been virtually no attention to the black soldiers of World War II, with the exception of the focus on the prejudice that they endured both in the Army and out. And I've told Rob this, but I want to say it in front of everything. The most important part of this film is this is the first film that talks about the service of these men. And it has nothing to do with prejudice. These were American soldiers. And Marshall Rainey said something to me a few weeks ago that I've just carried with me. He said when he was in England that the best compliment he had is when the English referred to him as an American soldier, because the black troopers took pride in the fact that they were soldiers, and no matter what anybody else thought, they took pride in it. The 333rd, the 969th were really crack outfits. And just to put things in a little bit of perspective and to whet your appetite, this that you've seen in this movie is really a small piece of the story, because the survivors, the A and B battery and headquarters battery, who were evacuated the day before, they ended up at Bastogne with the 969th. They were encircled by the Germans. They were with the 101st Airborne the whole time the siege of Bastogne was going on. And that's why they got the Presidential Unit Citation. So there's a lot more history to the black soldiers of World War II that's going on, and it's my hope that more and more people will pay attention, so that it's not that they were forgotten, they were never really acknowledged in the first place. But a film like this is very, very important because it focuses on the service, and that's what we should be focusing on. Not the prejudice they endured. Yes, that was definitely a part of things, and that reflects on our society at the time, but the service that these men did.
And that was, that guiding principle came from Joe and everyone on the team. We wanted to show the heroics of them as soldiers. You know, no matter what color they were, they performed heroically and delayed the Germans. Everything that was in there was factual. And what comes out of it is people realize that, yes, black soldiers fought in World War II, and bravely on the front lines. And it's my hope with this film that it opens up the door. I feel like there's a whole treasure trove of stories that haven't been told from World War II. And I hope this will open up the door to those stories, and not just, you know, about the prejudice. And Norm has another.
I just wanted to, this is the first time I've seen the film, by the way. But what I really wanted to commend Rob for, and to back up what he's saying, if you notice at the end of the film, you saw black soldiers in many different roles. You saw the black Marines on Iwo Jima. You saw black soldiers, not just the Tuskegee Airmen, but in the many different roles that they served in World War II. And that's a great first step to just saying to people they were everywhere. There were Marines on Iwo Jima. There were black soldiers who landed on D-Day. If you've ever seen the pictures, and if you go back and look in the history books of, you know, the dirigible balloons that they put up with the wires so that the low-flying planes would run into it, that was an all-black unit, the 331st, that landed on day one at Omaha Beach and put those balloons up. So they really were everywhere. We just, I say we, from a historical standpoint, really just didn't take note of it.
I hope to be here again next year at about this time doing a follow-up story on another group, the 452nd Anti-Aircraft Battalion. Remarkable group of men. Shot down over 1,000 German planes and didn't sustain one casualty. Now those planes are going 100 to 300 miles per hour. And they had the deuce and a halves with the quad 50 cal sitting back there like that, over 1,000 German planes. Those guys were special. If you want to read a great little book, it's titled Blood for Dignity, and it tells the story of how the 5th Platoon originated during World War II, when black troops were brought up to the front lines. Also, a lot of people don't know, most of the black soldiers that went to the front lines during that battle had to take a cut in rank and a 50% pay cut. Yeah. Very sad. So all we can do is keep looking for these stories and they're gems, and they're special, and they're American history. And I'll try to do the best I can to keep honoring these guys, because what it comes down to, we're all Americans, and they were American soldiers, and it's about time this stopped. Thank you.
Another question?